Welcome into Rounding the Bases, the podcast about culture and leadership with a baseball twist, presented by Enterprise Bank and Trust, hashtag no stopping you. Enterprise Bank and Trust was founded by entrepreneurs with the core focus of serving privately owned small and medium-sized businesses who have a story to tell. Enterprise Bank's commitment is to listen, learn, and guide clients to a lifetime of financial success. Enterprise Bank. Together, there's no stopping you. My name is Joel Goldberg. I'm a storyteller, love the partnership with Enterprise, and I'm coming to you from the Kansas City Audiovisual Studios. They create engaging spaces. Check them out at kcav.com. A lot to discuss on this episode, and every now and then I'll have a former athlete. I think in today's case, it is a former and current athlete when you see what she does in life. And Hailee Walsh is much more than that. She is a former Division I soccer player, former pro soccer player. She grew up in Kansas City and swore that when she moved away at 18, she would never come back, but she did. And she opened City Gym. She has so much going on in her life. Also an activist, a writer, a speaker, and someone that just has a really amazing perspective on so much that's going on in the world. So I am happy right now to be joined by Hailee Walsh, owner of City Gym.
Good morning, Joel.
Hailee? How's it going?
I'm so good. I've been looking forward to talking to you all week, honestly.
Well, you're very sweet, you're kind, and I also know that you're a busy woman because, look, you're an entrepreneur grinding through COVID in a business that really had to adjust. There's not a gym in the country that hasn't had to make major adjustments. So let's just begin there. What have these last 6 or 7 months, 8 months been like for you?
So I have started saying that folks in the gym business are actually in the business of being inside, breathing hard, and touching things. So we are sort of ground zero when it comes to a pandemic. And the last 6 to 8 months have been crazy. I have definitely kind of ridden the emotional roller coaster from collapse and grief all the way through to feeling like a big surge of creativity and figuring out ways to pivot and to respond and to be innovative in the ways that small business ownership allows us to be. So it has been, and every single small business owner I talked to said the same thing. We're all just sort of walking in every single day and doing what small businesses do, which is taking things as they come to us. And it reminds me of the early days of opening my business when there was so much I didn't know, and there was something new every day, and I was still creating systems and process and all of that. And so I would walk in every day, and it was just like ER triage, and that's sort of where we are again in terms of our business. So it's been hard, it's been exciting, it's been terrifying, but it also feels like an opportunity.
There is an opportunity, and it doesn't matter whether you are an entrepreneur in the speaking world like me, and you dabble in that world certainly too, but your bread and butter, as is the case with me, where my bread and butter is baseball. But that either happens or it doesn't. I mean, I was certainly a victim for 4 months of, I don't have a say in this one. Doesn't mean better or worse. It was just different. I had the time to focus really on that speaking career because I saw the opportunity. You have had to create these opportunities for very loyal customers who I know love to be at City Gym. There's a vibe there. So before we talk about that vibe and why in the world you came back home and your background and all of that, how challenging was the pivot to put people at ease and say, hey, wait a minute, we're not going to stop working out. We're not going to stop having this community? Because I know I probably speak for a lot of people out there that said, well, you know what? I got to focus on other stuff right now. I can't worry about working out or eating healthy. I mean, I know there are a lot of us out there like that, but meanwhile, you had to go the other way, right?
Right. So, I mean, since day one, I have said the equipment and the space and the classes are sort of the way we get in front of people, but that we're doing something more than that, that we're creating a place where people feel like they belong, where they feel safe, where they feel inspired. And so really drilling down on that kind of core messaging was key for us. So one of the things that we really are focused on is our integrity. So at City Gym, we say what we mean and we mean what we say. And that sounds kind of silly, but gyms have a reputation for being kind of, smarmy and trying to sell you a bunch of stuff you don't need. And so all of our business practices, all of the folks that we hire, the way that we do our work is all built on integrity. And so know our customer base, and hopefully folks in Kansas City, when they think of City Gym, that they know that congruency between what we say and what we do. And so I really just kind of dug into that. I sort of leaned into that. I started having I engaged my community in conversation. So I was really transparent about my thought process, about how I was learning, about what was happening. I was hosting live Zoom events, kind of happy hour events for members to log on, to be able to see my face, hear my voice, share with them what we were thinking, what we were doing. I engaged a lot of local resources from the medical community, so epidemiologists and medical ICU folks, and really brilliant people who I would bring on, and we would have conversations about how I was making my decisions and why I was making my decisions. So I just really focused on integrity and transparency and just communicating as much as I possibly can. Pretty early in the pandemic, I remember when the president started coming out and talking about the pandemic. So it wasn't surrogates, but he was actually standing in front of folks and speaking about the pandemic. And I remember very early on thinking, yeah, this is the kind of leadership that we need right now, right? That fireside chat mentality of like, we need to hear our leaders, what they're thinking, how they're processing, what they're doing, that we're not going to get it perfect because this is clearly a time that is unprecedented, the word of 2020, yes. Unprecedented. But I wanted to be able to just be as transparent as I possibly could. And we're a family, we're a community. And so I wanted them to know that we weren't doing anything in secret, and that we were doing everything based off of the idea that we wanted to keep them as safe as possible. We wanted to be as responsible as possible. We're a wellness community. So we're not only keeping our community safe, we're trying to keep Kansas City safe. And so just really acting on our values, acting on our integrity, was my focus, or in the early, still my focus, but really so in the early days.
Well, I've had the chance to get to know you a little bit, and Erin Folk introduced us, and I knew the second she mentioned you, I'm like, I want to meet this woman. And I knew from what she had said, and I'd heard a little bit about you elsewhere. I think she had even said, how do you two not know each other? Sometimes some things slip through the cracks. Yeah. And well, I knew sat down.
Real talk. I knew who you were, Joe Goldberg. Okay, I'm a lifelong Kansas City Royals fan. I'm a fangirl. So I definitely knew who you were. So when Erin, who is the world Kansas City's greatest connector, said you two should meet, I was like, yes, we should.
Yeah, and then you realize I'm really not that big of a deal at all. You're the one that is taking things and making change in this community. And I knew that. As soon as she described you and I started reading about you a little bit, I was like, yeah, I need to hang out with this woman. And, looking at your website, HaileeBWalsh.com, by the way, it's HAILEE for those that are listening, HaileeBWalsh.com. And I love it right there in your bio. It says Hailee Bland Walsh is a community activist, professional athlete, fitness entrepreneur, and speaker. But wait, she's more than that. She's vulnerable, magnetic, approachable, inclusive, and she never turns down a chance at building someone up. She's always the voice in the room that says what needs to be said. She celebrates the real and the raw. She's a champion and advocate for others, and she's all about empowerment and belonging. And, you talked about opportunity right now. And to me, I really believe if we push forward, there's opportunity. In terms of being an activist, in terms of having that voice, does that feel magnified for you right now?
Yeah, part of why I made the decision, Joel, to get into small business was because I knew from my family's experience, from personal experience, the power of business, of being a business owner, the platform that gives you. So from the moment of the genesis of creation for City Gym, I knew that I was going to have a different responsibility than if I was just, running a gym or high up in a fitness company. that what I said and what I did really was going to make an impact. And so I have been as intentional as I possibly could be from the beginning, and really trying to be intentional about who I am, how authentic I try to be. And so is it more magnified? I think so. I think I'm in a unique position as, to be real, as a white woman with power and privilege. We're talking about really important things in this country, like racial equity. And when there are systems at play, systems like white supremacy or racism, those are the sort of systems that I have been a benefactor from. And so because of that, I have a real opportunity, I have a real responsibility to have those conversations with folks who look like me and who have had similar experiences. Because sometimes we're not having these conversations in groups of folks who don't look like us, frankly. And so I know this is true in the in the white community. I know that this is true in the LGBTQ community. So someone who identifies in the LGBTQ community, having these conversations, being somebody with a little bit of with power and a platform. Yeah, I think even more so, it is vitally important for folks to be taking these opportunities to say those things that need to be said, even when they feel really uncomfortable, even when they feel personal, even when they make you feel vulnerable, because that's how real change happens.
Well, and that's why you're a champion, and that's why I knew that you and I were going to connect, because I feel that same responsibility to be able to, especially through this podcast where I'm not trapped in, and it's not like people are telling me on TV or baseball, hey, you can or can't talk about this, but I'm talking about 30-second chunks here and there where
Right.
I've got to talk about what just happened on that play, and there's a place and a time
Right.
to do it publicly, and I think that this is it. And we have to continue to have these discussions with people that are different than us, and ask if you don't agree or it doesn't make sense, then ask why, and at
Right.
least start that dialogue. For you, you told me you write about leaving,
Yeah.
never wanting to come back, but yet being drawn back. You also mentioned identifying with the LGBTQ community. So what was it that pushed you away and what pulled you back?
Yeah. So, I grew up in a suburb of Kansas City in out south in Leawood, Overland Park. And so I grew up in a very homogenous environment, and knew pretty early that there was something about me that was different. I would often say, why is everyone I know white? Why is everyone I know the same religious experience? Why is there no diversity? And so I was asking those questions pretty early on, but mostly because I knew that I was gay. And so when you live through that lens, you start looking for other folks who are different too. And so it sort of gave me a context and a sense of trying to broaden my experience, because I did live in a fairly isolated or kind of insular community. I mean, I was young, and it's your schools and your neighborhoods and your sports teams and whatever. I felt like a real calling to have a broader lived experience and be in communities that were more diverse and more inclusive potentially. So I moved away, swearing I would never come back. But one of the things that I really grew to realize is that as I was away from Kansas City, growing and learning and evolving and developing, Kansas City was growing and learning and developing too. And so my communities were not at the same pace that I was, but my communities were evolving as well. And I couldn't be so entitled or elitist to think that I was too good for Kansas City. And so as I started coming back as an adult and having an adult experience and being in spaces that were more diverse, I started to really develop a different sense of Kansas City than I had as a kid. And so I'd reached a place in my career where I was actually working for the YMCA, that I'm an organization I'm super passionate about. I thought, I'm going to work here forever. I'm going to be a CEO. I'm going to do this work. but in doing so, when you work for an organization like the YMCA, you eventually move out of sort of your passion area, which for me was fitness, obviously, and you move into more of like a managerial role, and you're managing other managers, which was also, kind of cool and exciting for me. But there's something about fitness that just was always my hook. And so as I was having these sort of thoughts and conversations with myself, I actually came home for my grandma's 80th birthday and was sitting in the backyard of my sister's Brookside house. And her and my brother-in-law had just bought their first house. She's 5 years younger than me. We started having a conversation about how much she paid for the house. And I said, I'm sorry, for like the whole house and like the trees and the driveway and the garage, because I was living in San Francisco where cost of living was insane. And I just was so charmed by the local feel of Brookside Waldo, even Crossroads. And so I started saying to her, where's your cute little local gym that you're a member of? And she said, oh, there's really not anything. And so I thought, oh, you're crazy. So I started doing a little bit of research. She actually said to me over pancakes at etc., you should move back to Kansas City and open a gym. And I said to her, that is the dumbest thing anyone has ever said to me. I have worked harder and longer to get get the big corner office and one of the biggest fitness meccas in the world, San Francisco. I can't believe you would even say that to me. And then Joel, I was waking up in the middle of the night, writing things down, and just like something was being created through me, honestly, is what it felt like. And so I even resisted the urge to come back to Kansas City. Still, I started looking at other markets, Austin, Denver, Minneapolis. I was like, where can I go that's not Kansas City, that this thing can be born in me? And you know what? After doing research and really, really thinking about my network and thinking about the way I can make the most impact right away, Kansas City was a place for me to be.
Hmm. You never know. You
You
really
don't.
never know. And you found your place, you found your home. And you said something to me when we went for coffee that was really interesting, because I think so often, and we all saw it in some form or another as kids, that those that are different get picked on. It doesn't mean that everyone is involved in it. Maybe you
Right.
look the other way. Maybe you do come up and you put your arm around somebody and say, hey, look, I understand you. It doesn't happen enough. Obviously, we have so much in terms of mental health now, which is at a different level than when you were growing up. I've got you by a lot of years. Different when I was growing up because of social media. It has
Totally.
become a tougher place to live
Really,
for
truly.
a kid, and especially for a teenager. But what you said that was really interesting to me was that you, even though you knew that maybe you were a little bit different in terms of sexuality, that you were immune to a lot of it because you were the star athlete. And that's not always the case. It's oftentimes not the case. And I wonder what that did for you mentally in terms of either being able to avoid it, or I don't know if there was any guilt or a different perspective. How did that
Hmm.
change, or at least mold you?
Yeah, being an athlete saved my life, frankly. And also created for me such a foundational experience that is why I created City Gym. So City Gym for most folks is what sports were for me. So as someone who struggled navigating kind of like kiddo girl dynamics, because I just didn't really even care, I could throw myself, I could walk out onto the soccer field at recess and get picked first for the kickball team or for the soccer team or for football or whatever, and so I received a sense of validation there, and I felt a sense of strength and confidence and competence. I could be someone on the sports field. I could embody all of those things and kind of fake it until I made it. And then being an accomplished athlete, I was included in kind of the cool crowds, but I could sort of engage with them at the level that I wanted to. And so because I didn't feel totally safe or comfortable, I would sort of like engage on the fringe just enough to sort of, kind of play the role and then pull back. But in having that experience of feeling different, but having a tool, which is what sports were for me, it created, like I said, a framework that I have used for my entire life. And I was naive in not knowing that most people had not had that experience. And so when I started working in fitness in 2004, I was working at a gym in San Francisco. I literally got hired with zero experience besides my, professional sports resume. And so I would, folks would come to me, and specifically women, and I watched as we accomplished things in the gym that they didn't feel like they could do, whether it was lifting more weight or running longer or just feeling a sense of physical strength. And I watched the way in which that changed their mental capacity. So the way feeling strong in the gym makes you feel strong outside of the gym. And that is why I have continued to work in fitness since 2004. It's that spark. It's that transformation that happens as we put people in environments where they can practice those skill sets. And that's what City Gym is. City Gym is a laboratory for folks who want to transform, who want to be the biggest, fullest versions of themselves, but so often don't feel safe enough or included enough to walk into spaces where transformation happens. And so as I was doing it for my clients and watching this incredible spark happen, it really landed for me how much sports, gave me a sense of who I am and have allowed me to have the confidence and the leadership skills and whatnot that have served me long into my future. But undoubtedly, I stay for the transformation that happens. I mean, there's nothing like finishing a workout or ending a group fitness class and someone walking up to you and there's this look on their face. There's this aha moment where you can see it's the beginning of something different for them. And so that's why I do what I do. That's why I enjoy being in front of groups of people and teaching and speaking. It's not because I want to stand on stage and have people clap for me. I want folks to have that aha moment, because that feeling, that sense of yourself, that feeling of knowing who you are, it's so beautiful, and I want to share that with folks.
Okay, let's talk about the soccer career before I move on to the baseball team questions. Tell me about the college and professional soccer career.
Yeah, so I was really lucky. I mean, I knew from a very early age, my parents were very candid with me. I grew up in a very middle-class family, and they said to me, okay, kid, here's the deal. You can go to school anywhere in the great state of Kansas unless you get a soccer scholarship someplace else. And so I knew from very early that I wanted to leave Kansas. And I knew that in order to do so, I was going to have to rely on probably my athletic ability and a little bit of smarts. And so I was singularly focused on getting a Division I soccer scholarship. I had kind of a criteria for myself. I wanted to play for a Division I team. I wanted to play for a team that was in the top 10. I wanted to play. I didn't want to sit on the bench, because at the time there was no women's professional league. So past college, that was it. I wanted to play every single minute that I could play. And so that criteria led me to the University of Minnesota, where I played for the Golden Gophers. And when I made the decision to go, my dad was like, wait a minute. You're going to go play in shorts and a t-shirt, a sport outside? That doesn't make much sense to me. But I loved it. I loved Minneapolis. I still love Minneapolis. I had a great experience. And then I played a little bit of pro soccer following in the WUSA. It was, I only played for just a little over a year. The league went bankrupt while I was playing. And so I ended up, my career was cut short. And then I moved to Germany for a year, where I was an au pair and kind of messed around a little bit, kind of waiting for the league to be reinstated. And then when I realized that it wasn't, I thought, oh man, I'm going to have to be an adult now. So to avoid that, I got certified to be a personal trainer, moved to San Francisco, and the rest is history.
And it's all come full circle back to Kansas City.
For sure.
But I didn't mention your university because I went to Wisconsin. We're big rivals.
I know. We stumbled upon that. We
did, but it's okay. I love the Twin Cities.
And I love Madison. I adore Madison.
I mean, who doesn't? Madison's amazing.
Yeah.
But I say all the time that Minneapolis and the Twin Cities are the most underrated place we go in baseball, because everybody talks about the Bay Area and New York,
totally,
and, places like Chicago, of course. But to me, I love being up in the Twin Cities, even if the Gophers are there. No, just amazing people up there. Okay, time for the baseball themed questions.
Okay, let's do it.
By Kissick Construction, trusted team, reliable partner. Check them out at kissickco.com. And here is the thing: I know that you are a huge baseball fan. Not that you
Mhm.
need to be. This is more going to be about your career.
Right, right,
So
right. But Joel, speaking in sport metaphor is
I
my
know.
favorite pastime.
Well, you are more than qualified. It is not a prerequisite, by the way, but you are more than qualified to do that. So, Hailee, what's the biggest home run you've hit professionally in your career?
Biggest home run. I mean, City Gym, honestly. Maybe even more than that, moving back to Kansas City. There's been some things that have happened in my personal life. My mom was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. And I remember standing across the kitchen counter when she told us, thinking, this is why I'm supposed to be home, you know? So probably moving back to Kansas City, City Gym,
And then being able to make an impact on so many people's lives.
being able to make an impact. Yeah.
Okay, biggest swing and miss you've taken in your career, and what did you learn from it?
So we as athletes, our coaches always say you're going to learn more from a loss than you ever do a win. And most athletes who are Division I or professional athletes actually hate losing more than they like winning. So they will do anything to not lose. But that lesson has held true for me. So we actually opened a second location of City Gym downtown, and I ended up closing that location. And there were a lot of signs that pointed to this is going to be amazing, this is going to be epic, but there were so many things that I didn't even know that I didn't know that I learned about closing a business. So I learned more about how to be a successful business owner by closing a business than I have ever learned by running a successful business. So that's my biggest swing and miss. But again, I look back now and in the rearview mirror and in reverse and think, wow, I'm so glad that I had that loss.
Great lesson for sure. Last baseball themed question. My favorite, small ball. What are the little things that add up to the big things for you?
So as an athlete, I always prided myself on doing the things that other people wouldn't do, getting there early, staying late, putting in the work. I was never the fastest or the most skilled or the most raw talented ever at anything I've ever done. But I have always brought my entire self to things, and I have always worked harder than anyone else. And so for me, service leadership or servants leadership or leading by example is a part of what I try to do as a leader at City Gym, and what we embody as an organization. And so for us, small ball is people over profits. When you have a choice to do the right thing or to make a little bit of money, we always do the right thing. We always do the right thing, including the precautions that we've put in place with COVID. I mean, there are things that we're doing that some people don't like, and so they've canceled their membership because of it. But in the long run, I want to be able to look back and say, you know what? We did the hard thing. It was the right thing, but it was the hard thing because it was the right thing. So people over profits always.
Couldn't agree with you more on that one. Okay, 4 final questions as we round the bases. And the first one, I'll give you a baseball question on this
Okay.
one. I know that you wanted to try on my championship ring, and you did that and took a picture and all that. But let's be honest, I'm not the most. I that's not the biggest Royals World Championship ring, and you were able to try one on from someone a little bit more important.
Yeah, so I did a Teach for America event with Salvador Perez, and it was right after the World Series win. And so, you know, Salvi, larger than life. And if you're a Royals baseball fan, he's the team favorite. He's the embodiment of who the Royals are. And so I have felt such a kinship to him. So anyway, we sat down on the stage, and so I'm sitting next to Mrs. Hellsberg and Salvador Perez. Clearly, I'm not playing. I'm not at the same playing field as either of these two human beings. And I kind of lean over to Salvi, and I'm like, "Can I try on your ring?" So within 30 seconds, I had Salvi's ring on my hand. So I got to hang out with Salvador Perez and the championship ring for
Yeah,
at a Teach for America event.
and let's at least paint a little bit of a deeper picture here for those that don't know. And you could go to Hailee's website, HaileeBWalsh.com, HAILEEB Walsh.com. Hailee is unbelievably fit, in great shape. I think you always look amazing, but you're on the shorter end. Is that a fair
Yeah,
way to
I
say it?
mean, part of why I had got a soccer scholarship, Joel, is because basketball was never going to be an option for a for white girl from Kansas. That was just
Yeah.
not going to happen. So yeah, I'm about a fourth of the size of Salvador Perez.
Yeah, a little bit of an exaggeration, but he's every bit of 6'4" and fills out every
Yeah.
bit of it. You are not. So that it's a great image with this
It
big
was,
ring and
I
this
mean,
big
it
guy
was, I
and
had
you.
to, I had to hold on for dear life. It was almost a bangle bracelet more than it was a ring.
All right, second question as we round the bases. What was the scouting report on Hailee Walsh, the soccer player?
Yeah, so I had a coach tell me once, it was my senior year of college, and we were having sort of an end of season conversation, and I was talking about, I don't know, doing something extra. What else could I be doing to help the team, to help myself? And she leaned back and said to me, you know, the thing about you is that you are a show horse that thinks it's a workhorse.
Hmm.
And so I have that has been my mentality for forever. Like I said, I'm always going to outwork you. So I actually got recruited by almost all the Big Ten schools because the persona in the Big Ten is that blue collar,
Mhm.
total athlete. You're going to work hard the whole time you're on there. And so it was. I didn't know any other gear but go. Just go. And that still seems to that still seems to be my mentality.
Third question as we round the bases. This will be a little bit more in the health, wellness, fitness world. I know how in shape you are. I know how much it is a part of your everyday life. I'm always fascinated by the diet of people that have the discipline that you do, because most of them have their cheat meals here and then.
Yeah.
I've seen certain players like Gerard Dyson when he was with the Royals. I mean, he could eat anything at any point. It didn't make a difference. I mean, he was just, there was no body fat.
Yeah.
Alex Gordon has always just chosen to not. I've never seen Alex Gordon have any kind of sweets, pizza, or anything like that. He's notorious, famous, however you want to say it, for having the absolute perfect diet. Do you have a cheat meal?
Yes, my kind of pan ultimate, if I was on my deathbed and someone said, "What's your last meal?" So I'm a biscuits and gravy girl. I love biscuits and gravy. My dad makes amazing biscuits and gravy. So that would be that. And I was eating some Cheez-Its the other day, and I was like, if somebody ever asks me, what is one of your favorite foods? I'm going to say Cheez-Its. I feel like Cheez-Its, we don't talk about Cheez-Its enough. It is the perfect food. It's salty. It's savory, it's crunchy, it's bite-sized. You can hold like a serving in your hand. I was like, Cheez-Its.
Yeah. You just need to make sure you don't have more than one handful.
Yeah, not a box of Cheez-Its.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Moderation, always moderation. Okay, final question, the walk-off. And, I think about women's soccer. Immediately the mind goes to the World Cup team,
Amazing.
the champions, not just champions on the soccer field, but what they have done to champion the rights of women in terms of equal pay, in terms of opportunity for young girls. And I see so much of that in you, not just for young girls and women, but for everyone. And to me, the greatest example or priority of inclusivity. So I'm just curious, the spirit of that women's World Cup team, how much that affected you and how much you take that same type of fight and spirit and activism into your everyday life.
So I tell people this all the time. That persona, that culture that is the U.S. women's soccer team, that is women's soccer as a whole. So from the time I was really young, 13, 14 years old, I was going to camps being coached by U.S. women's national team players who would stay long after camp was over, working with individuals. If you've ever been to a women's soccer game, those women are staying long after the stadium lights go off, signing autographs, really understanding their responsibility to invest in the next generation, because what we know about women's sports in general is that we have to do it for ourselves, right? So we're creating a culture and a community that sustains itself. And we do that by investing in next generations and by pulling folks along and never saying, nope, there are no more seats at the table. Instead of saying, we're going to create more tables, we're going to create more seats. I'm not doing, it's not, I get here and you can't. It's, I'm here and how do I get more folks here? How do I create more opportunity? And so the U.S. women's national team embodies that philosophy, that ethos, that if you've grown up as a as a women's soccer player and been in those sort of environments at any point, you know that that's true. And so, yeah, I absolutely have that exact same philosophy, and that, you know, when they were lobbying for equal pay, they were doing so to set a precedent for other countries and other teams, right? It wasn't just about them getting equal pay. When they have lobbied for safe playing environments, they're not just lobbying for them to play on the best fields, they're lobbying for everyone to play on the best fields. And so fortunately for me, I was steeped in that ethos my whole life. And so undoubtedly we bring that same, I don't know if you could see, let me see if I can adjust my camera. You see up at the top, that person, Megan Rapinoe, right there, standing with her arms open.
Yep.
So when she did that, she got a lot of flack, right? Folks were like, "Oh, that was the bravado, the whatever." But I saw something different. I mean, Megan Rapinoe has been a champion for many, many years for equality and inclusivity, and her standing with her arms open, to me, symbolizes so much more. It's not about her, right? It's about us. And so yeah, fortunately, I grew up in that culture, and it's something that I try to embody today.
Well, it's incredibly inspiring. Funny how she took a lot of flack for that, but men on the soccer pitch have been doing that all over the world for years.
Taking their shirts off, running
Yeah.
into stadiums, backflips. She stands, I mean, she does something like almost not human, and kind of takes like a deserved, like, yeah, and gets a lot of flack for it. Yeah.
And we're more interested in giving her flack for that and talking about whatever the color her hair is without really actually celebrating the moment. And yet we would celebrate those celebrations from the men all over the world. We've come a long ways from that moment. We still, I believe, have a long ways to go. And I know that you're a big part of that here in this community. And so for people that want to learn more about the gym, you could go to citygymkc.com. And
That's
then
right.
for more on Hailee, and you really either one will get you to the other, you can go to HaileeBWalsh.com, HaileeBWalsh.com. I think I got it there.
Thanks, Joel.
Hailee, I appreciate it.
Oh man, this has been really fun.
You deserve some Cheez-Its tonight.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks for doing this. It's a great conversation.
Coffee soon.
Coffee soon for sure. And I want to thank everyone for watching, including my sponsors, Kansas City Audiovisual, Kissick Construction, and Enterprise Bank and Trust. Businesses often come to Enterprise Bank because they require a consultative banking partner who knows that each business is unique and doesn't fit in a box. Sounds a little bit like the City Gym. You can reach me at joelgoldbergmedia.com. Thanks for watching Rounding the Bases, presented by Enterprise Bank and Trust. #NoStoppingYou. Hope to catch you next time.